In America, there's a lot of them in California, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Those are the biggest states with Hmong populations. The reason why is because, like, in the late 60s, early 70s, we were in the Vietnam War, like everybody knows. It's kind of really sad, but Hmong people don't get the credit they deserve for what they did for us in the Vietnam War. What they did was the CIA went into the mountains. Like they knew there was like a freedom-loving people in those communist countries, in Laos and Vietnam, someone who didn't necessarily get along with the communists. And so they're like, we need to befriend these guys because they know the area, they know the mountains and the regions around Vietnam and Laos. And so they went and they trained them to rescue downed American pilots when they were bombing like the Ho Chi Minh Trail and everything like that, and how to like defend really important bases or areas that the Americans needed to control for like an advantage or something like that. And a lot of Hmong people gave up their lives for it because they believed that Americans were going to win them freedom from communism and stuff like that. And so they fought alongside us. Nobody really knew that, though. I mean, they're not really in history books that we learn in high school and everything like that. They deserve a lot more than that. But eventually, like every person knows, we lost the Vietnam War and we pulled out. And when the communists found out that the Hmong people helped us out, they started a genocide of Hmong people. That's another thing that isn't in our history books. Like, nobody really knows that the Vietnamese, the communist Vietnamese, there are Vietnamese that were communists and Vietnamese that weren't, don't get me wrong. And same with Laotians. They were good and bad. But the communists started like going up into the mountains and just killing them, burning their villages down and killing innocent men, women, and children. And so the Hmong people needed to flee. And the only neutral country around was Thailand. And so they needed to run down the mountains, through the jungles and everything like that. And they needed to get to the Mekong River and cross it. And once they crossed the Mekong River, they're in Thailand. And so a lot of them did that, but a lot of them were hunted down in the process. I mean, I remember hearing stories about Hmong people making their way through the jungles and everything like that, what they had to do to survive and stuff. And I've heard some really, really horrible stories of what's happened to their families. Things that still sometimes when I think about it make me cry, because it's really sad what happened to them. And even when they were crossing the Mekong River, they had babies strapped to their backs trying to get them to safety, and they would start swimming in the river, and then with their babies alive, and they would get out of the water and their babies would have gotten shot because they were on their back. And a lot of people lost their lives trying to get away for helping us. And once they got to Thailand, they were there as refugees for a long, long time, for like near 20 years. A lot of them were refugees, and they started coming over to America in waves because the American government let them come over as like political refugees and stuff like that. And they settled in parts of California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and there's a lot of them in Alaska too. And so that's why they're here. Don't ask me why they're in those random states. But they did a lot to get here. Hmong culture is really interesting. It's not atheistic, but they don't have a god. They don't really believe in a god. They don't believe in like a savior or anything like that. What they have are shamans. Shamans are like a spiritual leader in a way. In each clan of Hmong people, there's only 18 clans in Hmong, and that's their last name. Each clan has a shaman in like each of their individual areas wherever they live, in cities and stuff like that. And the shaman would pretty much take care of them, like their spiritual needs in a way. Like if they got sick, it meant that a part of their spirit was led away by an evil spirit. And the reason why you're sick is because you're missing a part of you. And so what the shaman would do is they would come over, they would perform like this certain ritual, and then once the ritual kind of worked out, they would like go into the spirit world, and they would find the evil spirit and they would barter with it to get the spirit back. And usually the bartering takes like a sacrifice of an animal or something like that. And so it's really interesting because it's kind of like the law of Moses in a way, where they would sacrifice like an animal to like be cleansed or something like that. Hmong people would sacrifice an animal to get better. Most oftentimes they would sacrifice maybe like a chicken, sometimes a pig, and on really rare occasions, like on serious occasions, they might sacrifice a cow or something like that. And once they do that, the evil spirit could give the spirit back, and then the person can get better. They also believe in like animism in a way, like spirits being everywhere. One of the ways we found a Hmong house was we always saw spirit paper hanging above their door. Spirit paper has like a bunch of different uses. One of the use would be like to bring financial success to the family, and those spirit papers were pretty easily like you could see them and like know what they were for and everything like that. They were silver and tan. And then the ones that were there to like keep out bad spirits were like red. They had red diamonds on them and red and gold in a way. And they would hang that right above their front door. And then most of the time you would see corn hanging outside as well. Every now and then you might see some weird little cross stitching of like wood hanging on their door. I found a dog skull hanging on a door. I found horns hanging on a door, like from a goat or from something that had like spiral horns. And so I've seen a lot of things hanging on doors. And those things are to keep out bad spirits from their home. It's just really interesting, like trying to teach those people about God that have no prior belief in God. And it was a lot of fun, very, very challenging to teach people that don't have any foundation with like a higher being or anything like that. But it was definitely rewarding. Family is like super important to them. They're really ancestral. Like they have ancestral worship and everything. And if the younger people start going to church, it means they can't take care of them after they're gone, and their spirit would be lost forever. And so the younger generation gets a lot of pressure because they wouldn't be able to take care of their elders once they're gone. And so the elders would always pressure them, say, hey, you can't join a church. If you join a church, you're done. Like, you're out of this family for good. We won't talk to you. Nothing. We'll pretend like you don't even exist. And so it's super hard to find somebody who's willing to commit to becoming a member of the church because of that. Because they're afraid of what their family would do to them. But the thing is I really see that as something really good in a way, because that means their family is so important to them. There aren't too many do's and don'ts with Hmong culture. They're pretty lax people. Like, I remember being with another Hmong kid, and we were asking him, like, what do Hmong people eat with? Do they eat with, like, normal silverware like we do, or do they eat with chopsticks? And he's like, oh, they use Hmong chopsticks. And I was like, are those some sort of, like, special chopsticks or something like that? And he's like, no. And he sticks up his hands and he's like, yeah, we eat with Hmong chopsticks. And I thought that was hilarious. But he wasn't lying. When I got to the field, like, they eat with their hands. Like, they love it. Probably the biggest thing is really just taking your shoes off at the door, pretty much, and just respecting them for who they are. Don't try to act like you know more than them. You just got to be really respectful and polite. Like, where Hmong people come from, a lot of them live in, like, southern China, in provinces like Guizhou or Guangdong. There's a lot of them in Vietnam, a lot of them in Laos, a lot of them in Thailand. Things that I definitely really liked, though, that were super weird, like, I've eaten every organ on an animal. Like, name an animal and I've eaten its organs. And it's kind of interesting to say that, but something that Hmong people love to eat is squirrel. They love squirrel. Especially in Wisconsin, when there's actually like game squirrel instead of like street squirrel. You don't want to eat the ones in the city. You want to eat the ones out in the forest that actually eat good things. They love eating squirrel. And squirrel's kind of an interesting kind of meat. It's kind of bitter in a way. But I've had squirrel lung, squirrel liver, you name it, and I've had it. I've had squirrel brain. And they love rabbits too. Rabbits are actually pretty good. Another weird thing that some Hmong people like to eat, chicken feet. That's a lot of, like, it's a big Asian thing. Like, a lot of Asians love chicken feet. I wasn't too big of a fan of it because it's kind of weird. There's not really any meat on a chicken foot. You just have to eat its tendons and stuff. And so I wasn't too big of a fan because I like meat. There wasn't any meat. And so I was kind of bummed out. My favorite Hmong food, it's called zhao. What they do is they just boil some like greens, some like vegetables and stuff like that, and some water, and they put some sugar and salt into it. And sometimes they put like pork, like chopped up pork, and they boil it along with it. And I don't know, it's the most simplistic meal you can ever think of. Just put some vegetables in a pot, boil it, put some salt, sugar, a little bit of sugar, and some pork, and just boil it and just eat it like that. It is so good. And I'm pretty glad it's easy to make. They love rice. They make desserts with rice. I remember one time this guy gave me this weird little purple rice pancake, and then he gave me some caramel, and he's like, dip it in the caramel and eat it. And I was like, this is rice, bro. Just mushed up rice. And then later on, I come back home and I was like, yeah, Asians love rice. Like with like mochi ice cream and stuff like that. They make desserts out of rice, and they make everything out of rice. And I was like, I really liked it. Hmong food is generally really Southeastern Asian. So it's like, it's spicy. It's really hot. Like a lot of it's really hot. Some of it's not, some of it is. But for the most part, like Hmong food is really good. Super, super good. It's really different, but really, really good. I think the closest like you can really relate to is maybe like Thai food or Vietnamese food in a way. Like something that they always eat, like for like get-togethers and everything like that, is pho. Like that's Vietnamese, but they call it pho, which is a little bit different. But it's practically the same thing, but they add their own Hmong twist to it. Vietnamese people, they just make the pho broth and then eat it like that with rice noodles and meat and vegetables and stuff. But it's really funny, like at a Hmong get-together, when you eat pho, there's like thousands of different like condiments that you can put into it. And I remember my first time watching somebody make their own like bowl of pho. They were just grabbing random things and just going and I was like, I have no clue what the heck I'm gonna do. Like my pho's gonna like be terrible. And eventually I got it down. I got it down to a science. I knew what I liked when I ate pho. And that stuff was super, super, super good. Like I crave it all the time. Another thing that they love to make is called a khapong. It's actually a Thai thing, but Hmong people kind of put their own little spin on it like they do everything else. And it's kind of like a curry in a way. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's yellow. They love to put like bamboo, quail eggs, pork, beef, chicken, whatever meat you really want in it, like with some vegetables and some peppers and stuff like that. And that stuff is delicious. I haven't had it since I've been home actually, and so I've been craving that a lot lately. Khopong is really good. Another thing is kind of like a dessert drink that they drink like afterwards, after they eat everything. It's called nava. That's also Thai. I think Thai people call it nam vang. But that stuff is really good. It's kind of like a coconut caramel drink in a way, and they put like rice tapioca in it, and they cool it down. They put like ice cubes in it and everything like that. And I just don't know how to explain it. It's just like a really colorful like blend of amazingness in one little cup. It's super good. Like they have like these little green tapioca balls, pink tapioca like worm looking things. Then you get like blue stuff, white stuff, black stuff. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like you have a rainbow in a cup and it's super good. Hmong language is beautiful. I love it. Hmong is a tonal language. It's got the most tones that I know out of it of any Asian language. Like Mandarin Chinese, they have 5 or so tones. Cantonese has about 6 or so tones, but Hmong has like 8. And so you can say a word 8 different times, or like 8 different ways, and it would mean a different word each time. It's not related to Chinese at all. I mean, they're in 2 different language families, but Hmong does borrow a lot of like Chinese words. Like the word in Chinese, pengyao, means friend, but in Hmong it's pengyu. And so it's very, very similar in a way. The language borrows a lot of other words too from other languages as well. Besides Chinese, they borrow a lot of words from Lao, a lot of words from Thai, some from Vietnamese. You don't really hear about them very often, but there's some. And so it's really interesting because when you start learning all those words and everything, you get bits and pieces of every other language that they're around. You learn a little bit of Chinese, you learn a little bit of Thai, a little bit of Lao and stuff like that. And so it's pretty fun. It is pretty challenging to learn. It took me about a year to be really confident with when I was like speaking with people. By a year or so, I was pretty much understanding everything that people would say. Every now and then I would get a little lost, but I pretty much knew what people were talking about. In Hmong, there's a really similar consonant that's like, you pronounce it 6 different ways. It's 6 different words. Like it's kind of like a D sound in a way, but it can be a T. In Hmong, it can be an R, it can be a TH, and stuff like that. Like Dao, Tao, Dao, Tao, Dao, Tao, stuff like that. They all kind of sound similar, but they're all different. They add N's in front of words as well. And so you can be Ndao, Ntao, Ndao, Ntao, Ndao, Ntao, and stuff like that. Nói chung là đại sinh cũng muốn lưu chi phí hai lưu mình chỉ đó này cũng sa có này bảo thì cũng vắt chỉ trao số nó đó lưu chi phí của tôi mua cái này cho vắt chỉ là cái này ra lưu thì khởi mê thọ cũng đó này nhớ rồi này giờ ít thứ mấy rèn đó lúc còn sống đó là chỉ họ cụ thể tôi vắt chỉ trao hay thì tôi mua lưu chi phí đó bao này cái này cho vắt chỉ thì ba này mua几种限制的